Similar region, subtle bodies of family members and loved ones in the same region can simply meet together. For instance, two subtle bodies of relatives may cross paths in the nether or the Bavarlach. It is impossible for someone on a subtle, intangible level of existence to cross paths with someone on a subtler plane of existence. The nether region is the most offensive after Earth region, Bullock, are tangible. A subtle body located in one of the nether region's planes is unable to go to another subtle body located in heaven or the first region of hell. A subtle body from a more subtle plane of existence can move to a grosser, less subtle plane of existence. Subtle regions to more gross regions. A subtle body from a more subtle plane of existence can move to a grosser, less subtle plane of existence. Subtle regions to more gross regions. For instance, a temporary meeting between a subtle body in the third region of hell and a person in the first region of hell is possible. These visits typically endure for however long they are needed to, and they also depend on the subtle body that is making the visit's spiritual potency. Subtle higher regions. Subtle bodies in these regions are so spiritually developed that they are free of all cravings, including the desire to see family members. Their primary motivation for existing is to develop spiritually. Subtle bodies in heaven are incredibly happy and are frequently immersed in the subtle pleasures that heaven has to offer. As a result, the desire to meet previous relatives just does not encroach upon their consciousness. Visitors from any subtle location are welcome to pay a visit to subtle beings in the region of the dead or earth region. Higher spiritually superior spirits from hell's lowest region have the ability to briefly disturb the serenity in higher positive realms like heaven. So, what shape do we assume when we pass away? A subtle body starts to lose its connection to its prior earthly life as soon as it enters the area of the dead. The subtle body becomes an amorphous appearance by the time it passes through the area of the dead and enters one of the major subtle regions, such as the nether region. So people may be unable to leave the area of the dead if they have a strong attachment to their earthly lives and or loved ones. Here, they maintain a shape of their prior form. The energy of desire creates the form for many years. Subtle bodies can become imprisoned in the area of the dead and linger around their ancestral home. Because of this, people who have a sixth sense can sense or see them. Method for reuniting with deceased loved ones. The same region while entering. The energy from a loved one's single-minded desire to meet a deceased family or friend manifests as a subtle and tangible materialization of that person's form in the here and now. When that person's subtle bodies have a strong desire to do so. Because of the frequencies of desire coming from the ancestor's subtle body, the recently deceased relative who has just entered that era is drawn to it at the same time. Due to the familiar shape of the ancestor's subtle body that it has assumed, the descendant who has lately passed away can then recognize his ancestor. So at the time of death, family members typically share subtle basic sattva, raja, and tama components in a hereditary manner. Furthermore, because of their extreme sensitivity, the subtle bodies of ancestors who reside in the realms of the dead and the nether, may see the changes that are taking place in a person as they approach death. They are then attracted to the dead body's sound as it emits subvital energy and releases excretory gases. If a recently deceased person wishes to see his or her deceased ancestors, or if the deceased ancestor wants to meet the recently deceased person, the ancestor will manifest as a gaseous appearance on the intensity of their strong energy of desire. As a result, they assist the deceased in identifying themselves. Higher level ghosts, demons, devils, negative energies, etc., such as subtle sorcerers and mantrics, have been known to mislead recently deceased subtle bodies who are eager to visit their recently deceased ancestors by assuming the guise of deceased relatives and loved ones. If one has engaged in extensive spiritual work on earth and is able to see through their illusionary body, it is advisable to avoid this. Moreover, recently deceased subtle bodies may be currently in the regions of hell. Regular spiritual practice and achieving the highest spiritual level possible are the only surefire ways to guarantee one is not deceived after death. The likelihood of being duped by ghosts or ancestors from the regions of hell decreases with increasing spiritual degree at the moment of death. Furthermore, one has greater access to God's protection. Families with subtle bodies are more likely to remain together. This is due to the fact that relatives have many traits in common with one another. Animals, unlike humans, do not remain in the subtle form as a subtle body for very long after death, and are likely to be born again shortly, either in the same species or the next higher species if they have evolved. Pets are therefore extremely unlikely to be encountered in the afterlife. If someone does see their pet in the afterlife, whether through subtle vision or when they pass away and enter the afterlife, is most likely a delusion brought on by a higher level of evil energy, such as a subtle sorcerer trying to trick them. The best defense against being duped is, again, consistent spiritual practice.